you. Pleasure to be here. I hope that I can give just a slice of some of my experiences and knowledge to help people, but let's see how the Q&A goes. So I fell in love with the idea of becoming an actor when I was 8 years old, and partly because I just really enjoyed being center of attention. I loved the idea of making people laugh. Yeah, and I joined an amateur dramatic acting group in my local area. And I want to sort of kickstart today off with just a small introduction about that word amateur, and then the word profession, or certainly my viewpoint on it. And I know I share this view with a lot of other people. People think that the word amateur is potentially less valued than somebody that was doing it professionally. But if you break it down, amateur is the word amour, which is love, doing something that you love. And when you profess to something, it just means that you can still love it, but you are professing yourself to that career path. And I think what happens is people very quickly want to get rid of the word amateur and very quickly attach themselves to professional. But what happens then is that they send a CV and they try and make their CVs look as though they are professional actors, when actually it's very clear that they're still in the amateur stages. But I would have much preferred the honesty on that CV. And I know I'm jumping ahead a little, but that is because I just think it's really important that people are okay with the level that they are at. It's okay to be an amateur and still apply for a professional job. It's okay to put things on your CV that you are really proud of, but people put things on their CV that when, for example, if I request footage, suddenly there is no footage. And it's partially because they weren't entirely comfortable with providing me with it because of the quality of the piece. And I was in that same boat. Make no mistake that I understand wanting to make that leap so that people respect you, or that they look at you differently or admire you. It depends whatever floats your boat, really. But then as you get further along being a professional, you start to realize that actually you get more respect and people like you more just when you're super open and super honest about where you're at. And I hate the higher and lower. It's more, it's higher and lower in your estimations, not everybody else's. But yeah, I think, so I started when I was 8. I genuinely thought that I was going to make it. Everybody around me would very happily tell me that I was going to make it. I went into my adult life thinking that I was going to be somebody, and I was going to be somebody really big. I then went to drama school quite late, and the reason I went to drama school late is because I was very close to not going at all. A working class fat northerner with a skinhead was ever gonna get accepted. So I was a little bit scared of the rejection element. I applied for 3 drama schools. I ended up getting into Mount View Academy with a dance and drama award, which equates to about £60,000. So I was very lucky to have been awarded that. And then I left drama school with a very similar viewpoint, that I was going to get an agent and that I was going to fly into auditions daily. And I didn't get an agent after drama school, and I didn't get any auditions for about a year. I then suddenly found myself stuck in London. I had no money. I had a job that wasn't paying very well. Didn't have an agent. I wasn't acting. And so I had to move back to Teesside. And at that time, it was devastating for me to have to come back. But ultimately, it was the best decision. I was working in Manchester, teaching acting to actors that are in television and film. And so I went there for about a year. But I've come back to Teesside to try and make it more accessible for actors who are emerging. Don't have to make that leap to go all the way to London. They can actually do it here whilst they're living at home and saving on ridiculous prices of rent and travel. And when you want to profess and you genuinely want to take that leap and probably move out of where you're living to start a new life, then London has its, you know, does have its good qualities. It's all happening in the north, and it's getting bigger. And when I first came back, despite me knowing a lot of people in the industry, I couldn't really see much happening. It was really quiet when I first came back. And it just seems like now, every other day, I'm getting emails and telephone calls saying, "Oh, have you heard about this? There's a new project happening. There's a new film. There's a new, you know." And I just think you don't have to necessarily leave the area to make it happen for you. Some people with a lot of experience have decided to just set up acting groups like we have. You know, DJW is an acting school for people that genuinely want to take acting seriously. Like you mentioned earlier, we have an agency attached, so it sort of marries in with our training. But there are other really good acting groups out there, and they're doing wonderful things. And I think it's just about finding your set of people, find your tribe. You know, find the people that resonate with you. I look at the CV, I look at the credits and who's attached, and to do a little bit of research if I'm unclear, because obviously I don't know every single production company out there or every theatrical agency out there. And so after 5 minutes of doing a little bit of Googling, you suddenly realize, oh, this person's an amateur claiming to be professional, which is absolutely fine, but I would rather they just said, I'm still an amateur, but I would love to make the leap. I think it's a lot of things, actually. It's how one conducts themselves immediately. So having an agent, for me, doesn't necessarily make you a professional either. And some of these people have had credits. They've worked professionally. In order to look at how you are a professional, you can measure that in several different ways. For example, if you have 5 professional credits, you are eligible for Spotlight. And without those credits, you aren't able to join unless you are under the age of 25. So children can join up to the age of 25 with no professional credits and no actor training. But then if you are 25 plus and you try and join Spotlight, the answer is no, and they're quite strict. So if you do, and the rules are constantly changing, so if I'm ill-informed here, I can only apologise. There are certain things that don't qualify. So you might do an advert for television, and you get paid £10,000, and then you might do 5, and you apply for Spotlight, and they could still refuse you because it's not classed as a credit. Short films for a long while weren't classed as professional credits, but they are constantly changing. And I have actually 2 days ago just received the new update. So, you know, there's nothing wrong for a professional to be doing amateur work either. So not being paid, you know, being paid for a job, does that qualify you as a professional? Well, in many ways it does, but it depends who's paying you and whether they're professional. And, you know, someone might have a load of money, but they conduct themselves terribly. You know, I think they're called like film angels, people with just a load of money that get executive producer because they pumped in $5,000, but they have no knowledge of film, or they have no knowledge of theatre or television. But they are by right an executive producer. And so it's about making sure that the circles that you are working in, certainly in the early stages, the right circles, and the people that are conducting themselves professionally, and making it about the individual. I've always wanted to act. It's just been like the absolute dream. Until about 5 years ago, when I started setting up DJW, when I decided that actually I want to give back. And the way that DJW has grown from strength to strength each year is because I have never made it about me. It's always about the progress and the process for the individual that I'm working with, or collectively the group that I'm working with. And similar, you know, when an actor gets a job, I'm so happy that they are moving forward in their desired career path. But the truth is, I've stopped actually searching for work. I haven't looked for a job for me in 5 years, and I've had more work as a result of that. And I think that's partly because the hunger for it can sometimes look a little bit less appealing. So when I see actors that are claiming to be professional actors, and they're constantly posting, and I've just got a job on a television show, and I've just done this and I've just done that. And I do a very simple Google search, and it isn't a television show. It's just a pilot, of which anybody can do on a very standard Canon 600D. And you get a little crew together. Anyone can film a short film. It doesn't mean that they're professional. And I use the analogy, I might cook breakfast for my little girl, but it doesn't make me a chef. When I painted her Wendy house in the back garden, which took me 2 days, by the way, and I didn't get a massive thank you, doesn't make me a professional painter and decorator. If a friend said to me, would you come over and paint my wall? I'd be like, yeah, man, let's go. But I'm not a professional. And there's nothing wrong with not being a professional and still wanting to be one. What I find really interesting is those that have, I would rather see an empty CV than 300 things written down, but you were just a background artist. But I don't need to see that. I don't need to, because it doesn't tell me anything. It doesn't tell me that you're castable. It doesn't tell me that you're professional. It tells me that you're in the background of Vera or whatever, and it's an admirable job, and they're very, very well needed. But I just think it's about finding that truth. It's pointless sitting there thinking or dreaming, I want to be an actor, and then going into the kitchen and making yourself a sandwich. You have to actively be putting yourself into as many, but be careful, as many structured courses as you possibly can. Now, some of those will come at a cost, and some of those you will get for free. Now, not everything for free is bad, but you will get what you pay for. And that's why DJW have set up, we do scholarships every year for those that are struggling to be able to join us based on the fact that we charge for our service. Now, surrounding yourself with like-minded people is super important. But at the same time, it's important to surround yourself with people that aren't necessarily like-minded in order to give yourself the platform to be able to engage with a wider demographic, so that when you are placed in an awkward or uncomfortable situation because you don't know what they're talking about or you simply can't relate, if you put yourself into scenarios where it does test your character and your anxiety levels, you've got to start looking at that as part of you professing to this industry. It's when you can't see other people's point of view clearly, or you assume that you know better, having not had any official training. That's when it can become complicated. So find as many different groups as you can to see which people really resonate with your level of thinking. The difference is going to London and going to, for example, like I went to Mount View, is that it's an accredited course. Now, there are a couple in the Northeast. There are a couple that do offer accreditations at the end of it. So the first steps is to be active and get yourself involved. But I say that with slight hesitation, because there's something else that, and this is just me personally, and I hope there are people in here that understand why I'm saying what I'm about to say. And if it offends anybody, I can only apologize. Got to be really careful about accepting anything and just, saying yes to a role that is, not governed. Saying yes to a short film or a pilot TV series or whatever it is, just do your research, because once they have filmed you, that's it. They have you on file. And it might be your worst acting to date. You didn't get paid. You were poorly directed. It was shot on an iPhone. There wasn't a sound engineer on there or a sound recordist. It was edited on a very simple platform. And then they start pumping this stuff out on YouTube, and there's nothing you can do about it. Now, arguably, you could say, well, does it matter? Well, maybe not for everybody. Maybe they just want to have that experience and they want to learn on the job, amateur, because remember, it's okay to do amateur. But once you start to profess that you are a professional, that's when we have to start going, is there any way we can take this down? Because it really was shot at a time when you were ill-guided or not guided at all, or you didn't have the right people around you giving you the support to say, I don't have to say yes to everything. And I remember that something, I can't say which television show it is, or indeed who it was that offered me. I was offered a role in a television series, and it was only for a couple of episodes. And this is way back. This is like not long after I'd completed drama school. And I turned it down. And at the time, it felt right. Upon reflection, it was right. But also how foolish of me not to have taken a professional credit earlier. And the reason I turned it down was because I was surrounded by the wrong people that were telling me that I should be aiming for something else. And they were saying things like, oh, once you attach to this, you'll always be remembered for that. I turned down a television job because I was worried that I was going to be attached to something that I would later regret. And people are just jumping in very quickly saying, I'm going to be part of this thing that you have zero control over. And let me say as well, you can knock a contract up very easily. It's so easy to just go on the internet. I've seen it. I've seen people send me contracts and I've gone, that's a skeleton contract. That they've just changed their name. They've just put like, ABC Films or whatever, And I think there's so many actors out there that are just so keen to prove to their friends and family that they are now professionals and making really big mistakes. If you aren't proud of the end product, don't put it on your CV. Is the other thing that I would suggest. Why did I accept working with Peter King? Track record was one. I watched Cracked, I believe it was called. I watched it and I could see that it had been to several film festivals. I could see that it had backing, and I was like, this guy knows what he's doing. What I'm watching is stunning. So when I was offered, it was This Is the Winter. It was the short film that I was involved in with Peter. It's 1 minute. I'm in it for one single minute, and it's a 25-minute piece, And I jumped at the chance to work with him because of, Michael Fassbender was one of the producers on it. Liv Hill was the lead, of which I was working opposite. Liv Hill is, she was in Three Girls. She's just finished the feature film Jellyfish, all of which are connected to people that I admire, respect, or aspire to be in circles with. Ask yourself, do you want to sit having dinner with these people and feeling like I've finally got to a point where I am accepted? Somebody, the decision maker, decided that I might have a little nugget of information that might help somebody. And then suddenly you go, and I was very nervous. I was incredibly nervous before you hit play, but like I think that's how you sort of evaluate what's professional and what isn't, and you just got to look who's attached. Is it a BFI project? Are Northern Film and Media in any way linked? Have they helped? Do they support it? Tees Valley Screen, do they support it? And I'm just naming the obvious. Is another token gesture to say that it always has a result of remarkable things. And so if there was ever a mistake or a project that didn't quite land well, or it didn't quite get the response that everyone had first anticipated, that would just be a shame. Whereas there are other people that have track records where they've had 10 chances to get it right and they failed every single time because they don't have the governing bodies, or they don't have somebody attached that really knows what they're talking about. The amount of online producers, Facebook producers I call them, and Facebook actors is staggering. 84,000 registered actors in 2019. That's registered. That's Spotlight / Equity balanced out. 84,000 registered. And I think it's probably double, if not triple, the amount that aren't registered. And so you've got to try and associate yourself with organizations that are registered, that are reputable, that do have a track record, and that when they say something, they deliver. It's not just all talk. or the contract looks a bit suspect, a bit suspicious, you know, you sort of go, hang on a minute, get somebody to have a look at the contract for you, like your agent. Or if you're attending an acting school and it's not with us, you can go and speak to your drama coach to see whether they've come across anything like that before. You know, just don't jump into things without getting everything checked out. There's a lot I can't tell you who. You know, I got offered an acting role not that long ago, within the last 12 months, and it was for a feature film, and I turned it down. And the reason I turned it down was because I was offered $5,000 cash in hand. That's why I turned it down. Now you might go, are you mad? $5,000? That would have helped go towards a mortgage or to pay for a new car. If someone's offering me cash in hand, $5,000, and it also came with, and we also want me to do something else as well. It was like they wanted me to help with casting, but I won't go into details. I came off the phone and my partner was there with me and she said, never. And I was like, absolutely not. And this film has gone on. They've filmed it. It's all happened and they're doing it. But even they've just had a publication in the one of the newspapers, and they're talking about going to a really big film festival, for example. And it's like, okay, anyone can apply for a film festival, but until you actually get in, it doesn't really mean anything. I can apply for all sorts of things. It doesn't necessarily validate me just by applying for something. I remember when I was very young and incredibly naive, I used to always buy the weekly Stage magazine. I'll never forget it. It was like my local shop used to get one in just for me. There was nobody else that wanted it. But things have obviously changed massively since then. It depends. It really depends again on where you wish to be, because you can see professional and amateur jobs on Facebook, but the big one is get yourself on something like Twitter and Instagram and follow the casting directors, because they will always post. Unsolicited emails are something that I have constant battles with actors to try and educate them not to send unsolicited. And then it's really frustrating when a casting director, a very large, reputable casting director, says, oh, we don't mind. And then it suddenly feels like I've been trying to stop an actor from sending unsolicited emails. However, the reason I wouldn't send an unsolicited email and rather get an agent to do it for you, and if you haven't got an agent, I'll come to that in a second, get your agent to do it, because if you send an email and then your agent sends an email, it looks like you're not communicating, and it looks like the relationship between agent and actor is not strong. And two emails in an email inbox where you might get, remember, there's 84,000 registered actors in the UK. Now, I'm not suggesting they would get 84,000 emails, but sometimes it feels like that, you know, and we're just a relatively small independent agency in the Northeast, and we get over 100 emails a day for submissions from Spotlight, from Mundi, from all these different places. So if you haven't got an agent, how can you find work? Casting directors are constantly posting on social media. Just try not to attach yourself to these conversations. For example, if they're looking for something very specific, don't comment, I match this perfectly. The only difference is I've got blonde hair. Can I still apply? No, because they would have said. And yes, in some cases, casting directors can bend their own rules, but as a rule of thumb, if they are looking for a Scottish actor that is based in London, that's precisely what they're asking for. Not, I can do a Scottish accent. Well, that's fantastic that you can do that. But if they're looking for something specific, that is what they're looking for. And only on rare occasions would I say bend the rules, but only on very rare occasions. I speak to my casting directors and my producers direct a lot of the time, or through Spotlight. That's how we submit most of our actors. But I like to pick up the phone. So I hope by me giving you my frustrations, I might be able to loop back around and give you an answer here. There is no route. There is no like key to open that door. So I'll never forget Shaheen Baig, who's the casting director for Peaky Blinders, The Virtues, all these wonderful things. I've known Shaheen for years and years, and I'll never forget. I went to her with a complete clean slate. Like, I had nothing on my CV. And I said to her, nobody's giving me a break, even just one line. Nobody's giving me that one line to be able to put on my CV to prove that I can do television or film. And I went for a meeting with her, and eventually she brought me in for an audition, and I was given my first ever television role through Shaheen. So I owe a lot to her. And it was working with a director / writer called Dominic Savage. And what he does is he writes a script or works with somebody to write the script. And there's no dialogue. It's just action. So that when you arrive, he goes, okay, this is the scenario. This is what you've got to hit points A and B. Well, basically freestyle, like just sort of do it your own way. And I filmed. I was terrified. I was a car repo man for someone that didn't pay his debt. And I was anxiously waiting for it to come out on television so that I could prove that I was now like a television actor, because I've been there too. And I got a letter the day before saying that I'd been cut. And it was like the worst letter I think I've ever received. But I got my first credit. It just meant that I didn't make the cut. Now, arguably, I was able to put that on my CV. I think trying to get your first break is the hardest one of all. And for me, that's where an agent would probably be your best bet. If you're not known to them and they're super busy, it's just a bit like, oh, there's too much. And you end up just going into a tray on their emails, just like deal with later. I don't know, like get your agent to try and open the door for your first professional television job. Film, like I said, is a little bit easier because you can do a short film where the budget might only be $5,000. I produced a micro short for Tees Valley Screen, which was £1,000 budget. You've got to be able to hustle a little, but you've got to know the rules before you can break the rules. Otherwise, you're a bit of a pest, or you're constantly tagging yourself in stuff that has no relevance to the casting director or the producer, and they're like, oh God, there's that person again. There is no like direct route to that. It's about constantly refreshing your feeds. You know, when you want to go to Glastonbury and you've got to keep refreshing to get your tickets. It's about constantly looking at your casting directors and producers who are using social media now more than ever, but they've always been really good at posting stuff. So I would always get your agent to do it because it looks like somebody believes in you and that is happy to take over contractual and agreements, and you've got somebody that is like registered as an agent rather than I'm representing myself, which there's nothing wrong with either. But it's just about finding that balance, I think. We only get blessed. We I don't know about you, but I became an actor because I just loved playing other characters. Everybody's generic response to why did you become an actor? But actually, what you find is you get typecast all of the time. Don't be putting anything on your show reel that when I look at you, I go, what? What? That doesn't reflect who I'm looking at. So you've sent me your CV, you've sent me your headshot. I look at the show reel and I go, why are you playing an old lady, or why are you like? Whatever it is, leave all that stuff for theatre. In theatre, we can pretend that you're an old lady and get away with it. Television and film, you just can't. It's like a completely different spectrum of work. Keeping it like as close to you as humanly possible is my advice for showreels. There are plenty of agencies that will take actors on with or without spotlight. We are in the process of changing our policy on how we represent actors, but I won't bore you with that. it's a very tricky one. But I'll tell you how I managed to get an agent to take me on eventually. When I left drama school and I was on my own and in the big bad world of acting and not having a clue what I was doing, I sent a little email unsolicited. But this is different with an agent. It's very different. Casting directors are very different to agents. I sent an email to my agent at the time, and all I asked was, can I take them for lunch or a coffee? I didn't ask for a meeting. I didn't say that anything was going to come of it. I was actually really raw and very honest about, I just wanted to speak to them to learn how one might get involved on their books. And it was because of my frank email that drew her to want to meet with me, because I wasn't asking for anything. There's a lot of actors that come to me that are like, they just want representation immediately. Like, I want representation. This is my show reel. You know, this is what I've done. And I'm like, I probably would like to meet you first, but you've gone straight in at, you know, level 5, you know. So for those that are trained and they've got spotlight and they've got a couple of credits behind them or not, everyone likes a cup of coffee or a cup of tea, or would love to be spoiled for lunch. Of course they would. And I think by going in there without that desire for an outcome, other than to take somebody for coffee, and you don't go in there too hungry, too persistent that you want an outcome, there's nothing worse. It's like asking someone to go on a date with you. I think we'd work great together, and, you know, I can see all the wonderful, and you start telling me how great I am. Suddenly I start to feel the pressure that, oh, hang on a minute, maybe this is becoming a bit like, it's a bit much. It's a bit, whereas meeting up with somebody at coffee in Newcastle in a little coffee bar somewhere, and then I go, well, you know, what are you doing? And have you considered this? The agent will start to go, oh, I quite like this person. I really like how they're conducting. I like how they're answering my question. I like which question. Suddenly, the agent might turn around and go, we'll take you on. And you haven't even asked the question. Or they might say, send me an email, because I'll take a look at your spotlight, and I'll take a look at. Don't even mention spotlight. Don't even mention your credits in your first email to an agent. Basically, go, because here's the other thing. You might hear really good things about me, but until you work with me, how are you meant to know whether I'm the right agent for you? It works both ways. It's not just about the agent having the power, but actually the actor has to have a little bit of power too. And so I think you've got to go on that initial meeting, and you've got to suss each other out, you know. Some actors have signed with us, and then they've gone, oh my God, he's badass. Like, he won't let us get away with anything. And I'm like, take that post down off social media. I don't want it up there. Or take that headshot down. I don't like it. And suddenly they're like, whoa, I didn't think he was going to be this hands-on. Now, arguably, you can turn on and say, I'll put whatever headshot I want up. I'll go for any job that I please. And you can. But then I have a decision to make. Do I want to represent you? And you have a decision to make. Do you want me to represent you? So for me, I think it's getting the balance right from the offset, so that you're not putting too much pressure on the agent or indeed yourself. It's like when you go on that date and you think, I really want a second date, but does she or he, or does he or she want to go on this second date? Leave it to them to decide. And it might work for a year and then turn sour, which it often does. There's a lot, you're dealing with mass ego in this industry, and you're dealing with people that aren't not always very nice. Some people are, some people aren't. This is why I mentioned about finding your tribe, finding your team, and that's the same with your agent. Just by having an agent, it doesn't necessarily mean that you're made. That's it. I've got it. You've got to find the right agent, and it works both ways. Getting an agent might feel like the right route, but just be careful who it is that you've got behind you, because once you've attached yourself to someone, people might go, do you know, I've heard that name. Why have I heard that name? That actor, why do I know that actor's name? And you do a little Google search, and then bang, you're attached to somebody that has a terrible reputation. It can have a whole host of negative connotations attached to it. And unfortunately, I would love it if it wasn't if it was always positive and it was just really plain sailing and people could come and go, but unfortunately it can get a bit bitter and a bit nasty at times. We conduct ourselves as professionally as we can at all times, but unfortunately we have experienced some really terrible situations where actors have left us without explaining why, and then suddenly they're with another agent. And for me, I'd rather shake their hand, give them a big cuddle and go, good luck. But instead you get like a really snotty email with no reason. And unfortunately it can get a little bit nasty at times. But the one bit of advice that I do want to give for anybody that is doing an audition is try not to look at the audition as an audition. Look at it as the job. So be as prepared as you can be, turn up, do the job in the hope that they ask you to come back and do another job. Only the second time they'll pay you. And that's how I've always done it, is I go, well, this is how I would be if this was for real, like in terms of how I'm presenting myself and acting, how I would say it. But they're just not paying me for this audition. And fingers crossed they like me and they'd like to hire me again. And then, you know, when you do, you sort of go, okay, everything I did was right. And the other thing, and it might sound a little bit, you know, grassrooty, but they want you to be right. They're never sat there not wanting you to be right. So there's no like negative eyes on you. It's all like they're just going, maybe, just maybe that person could fit the brief. Until they whittle it down to get the right person. But they're never sat there going, terrible, that, you know, making notes going, I would never employ this actor again. It's never negative. It's always, how could we make this work? And if they can't, that's fair enough. And if they can, then, you know, you'll probably get brought in for round 2, or indeed they offer you the role. Quite recently, I've also just done doctors, but I didn't even have to audition for that. In fact, like I said, I haven't auditioned for quite a while. It goes on recommendation, or through my spotlight, they'll look at my show reel and go, yeah, this guy, he knows what he's doing, and it doesn't require anything majorly spectacular, you know, ultimately be himself. I tell you what I do like, and I know a lot of casting directors like as well. A letter or a card must be opened. An email does not necessarily have to be read. And so a thank you card goes a long way. And I've seen actors, and it's genius, they print out their headshots on small A5 or smaller A6 cards, and it's just their little headshot, and they just type in a little, you know, thank you very much, it was an honor, I hope you like my work, and I hope to work with you again soon. And 9 times out of 10, it'll go on their desk for a couple of days where they see your face every day. And then, okay, eventually it goes in the shredder. But for those couple of days, you're in the room. Just like a little thank you card. Or like I said earlier about this unsolicited thing, like emails, there's just too many people sending emails. But letters, just little, you know, a little card with your CV in it, or just something that's a little bit quirky. And like I said, not necessarily asking for work, not necessarily asking for anything other than, can I treat you to a coffee? Would I feel comfortable after one meeting and looking at a great CV and a headshot, would I feel comfortable saying, I represent this person and I think you should give them a shot? And if the answer is no, I probably won't be taking you on. And I would say, arguably, that's the case with every professional that I speak to on a day-to-day basis. I'm trying to look for that little twinkle, that little twinkle in their eye, that little, you know, I might see 100 people, or I might get 100 emails, or I might see 100 people at an audition, and I'm looking like, okay, that person was the same as 10 other people. So what are they bringing to me that is honestly real, organic, truthful? Remember, you are there to sell a product, and that product is you, but also at the same time, it's got to be done sincerely. It's okay to be nervous. Don't go in there pretending that you're not nervous. It's okay. It's fine to be nervous. And I just think too many people try and like blindly walk through the process, and it's ridiculous. You know, I would rather you go, oh my God, mate, I'm really nervous. And I go, hey, don't worry. Do you want a drink? Can we get this guy a drink of water? Where have you come from? And just chat you through it, because then you might be absolutely golden by the end of it. And if we go on, oh, he's nervous, you know, what's he going to be like under pressure? Oh, no, I'm not going to take him on. We'd be idiots, because actually that way we'd never find the diamonds of the auditions. In fact, just talking about Peter King, he was on our panel for the scholarship day that we offer at DJW. And I won't name who it was, but an actor that attends our school came in, auditioned, and there was just a little look between me, Maxine Bianco, Peter King. We all looked at each other and we were a bit like, didn't really go too well, but we started talking to them. And Peter King and Maxie both agreed. He was just so organic and so raw that that's what you can work with that. You can actually work with that. I did one scene in a feature film that was shot in the north called Almost Married. I don't know if anybody's seen it or not. You should go and see it just for the fact it's shot in the northeast. And I'll never forget, because you've got to remember, if you're a day player, which basically means you're there for the day, or maybe for 1 or 2 days, but you're still classed as a day player. They've all worked together for the last week. Maybe they did a table read. Maybe they all went for a drink. You turn up on set and you are the only person that is there, and you don't know anybody's names, or they've told you but you've forgotten because you're too nervous about making sure you know your lines and whatever else. And I'll never forget, I always take myself away every time I turn up on set for acting. And I just focus on myself and what I need to do in order to execute the role to the best of my ability. But on this one job, it was one of the runners. She sort of came over and she went, "Are you all right?" I was like, "Yeah, I'm fine. Why?" She went, "No, it's just like you seem like really nervous." And I went, "No, I'm absolutely fine." And it's because I was pacing up and down, and I was going through my lines, and I was having the occasional cigarette then, and it was quite interesting, because I thought it's quite interesting how she perceived me there, or how many people might have looked at me as, I think that guy might be really nervous, but actually I was just preparing, and I was not getting involved in all the major conversations, because actually they'll invite you in. A good crew and a good group of actors will invite you in, and if they do, by all means, crack on and, you know, have a good chat with them and have a laugh with them. But I always like to step back first and gauge, because I don't know what scene they're about to do, what scene they've just done. I don't know whether they're about to do an incredibly emotional scene, whether they've got to get really angry. So I can't walk over all jokes and laughter and like, "Hey, how's it going?" You know, my cheeky self. So you've got to be very mindful that even if you're not working, there are still 50 people in that crew, or however many, working so hard, and you sat there laughing and cracking on with other cast members or with crew, can be really off-putting when, you know, you've got the sound guy trying to listen to the last take. And so for me, in terms of etiquette, it's like sort of speak when spoken to is how I sort of approach it. And by all means, if I'm allowed to let rip, like, I'll do whatever I can to, you know, be center of attention again. But you've got to know your boundaries. And, you know, day players, which is what I do. I do a lot of day player stuff. Even the background artists are all equally as important to the next person. Of course they are. But you only have to do one scene or 2 scenes. These guys have had to learn like 50 pages of dialogue or whatever, you know, and you've just got to be really mindful that it's not about you. It's about everybody collectively. The director's thinking about the next shot. The DOP's noticed there's a crack on his lens, and you've all just got to maintain like a level of professionalism at all times. And that's why I think theatre differs a little, because you have 6 weeks to play zip zap boing and, you know, do games, and television's it's a bit quicker than that, and film is a lot quicker, and also time is money on television and film. You're losing light. It's about to rain. You haven't really got the time to fully indulge in it. So in terms of etiquette, I think it's a case of like genuinely sussing it out and being incredibly aware that even though you're not working, everybody else is. Yeah, I think there's going to be some very interesting television and film projects popping up shortly, I would imagine, where intimacy is going to become a real issue. I don't think I'm out of line by saying this. So Tom Brittney, who plays the lead in Make Me Famous and is also in Grantchester as the vicar, he is about to do a 20-week shoot on Grantchester, which I think starts in July, August. And there are a couple of scenes in there that now simply cannot be shot. Or if they are, they're going to have to be shot on a lens that would make the actors look like they're closer than they appear. And I think this is where filmmaking is going to have to take a bit of an interesting turn, because the actors are simply unable to be able to do the very thing that we are good at, and that is being spontaneous in a controlled environment. Suddenly you're going to be unable to be as spontaneous in a super controlled environment. So moving forward, we were very lucky with Doctors and Make Me Famous because it was pre-COVID-19. But we were all doing a Zoom the other night with Peter King and Tom and Tilly Keeper and Emma Rigby and all those people. We were all there and we were talking about how it would have been different had it been post-COVID or during COVID, which we wouldn't have been able to film anyway. And we were just talking simply about blocking and the fact that you're not going to get those really sincere moments. So you know how an editor might edit a scene together where he's pieced take 1 and take 4 together to create the scene. They reckon that it would be more of an editor's project than anybody else's, and the DOP will play a much more integral part to the process, because they would have to potentially use floor markings where they go, you cannot cross that line, you cannot do this, you cannot do that. So I think it's going to be really challenging for actors moving forward. But at that point, I would go back to what I've just said about when you get on set anyway, an actor should always really speak when spoken to and listen to absolutely every single thing that is being told to him or her. So you are not breaking any of the rules. And it might feel incredibly unnatural to do a particular move, which it can anyway. But I think with COVID about to become the new norm with filming, it's now more than ever an actor should really listen to the direction given, because it might be the very thing that makes a scene work or not work. So now it's about almost taking your skill set to a whole new level. You're going to have to really engage with a new way of using your physicality, with using the way that you move, and they might cut it at a certain point that they normally wouldn't. I think actors just need to be very adaptable to the changes that are inevitably gonna happen. I'm sorry to keep bringing up the same project over and over again. I promise I have done other stuff. So Sanjay Midha, who's one of the semi-regulars on Doctors, he plays Shaq. And Matthew Chambers, who plays Dr. Daniel Granger, who is has been the lead for 13 years on Doctors. They've just done an episode entirely shot from their own homes. And you should all go and watch it purely for this very reason. The whole thing is a Zoom conversation, and it aired not that long ago. I think it's Can You Hear Me? I think if you go on iPlayer, BBC iPlayer, it's called Can You Hear Me? They shot the entire thing where the producers were on the other end of the Zoom, screen grabbing and recording everything that the actors were doing, and then they edited them all together and aired it on BBC One. Now, so that's just filming, let alone getting actors in the room with casting directors. Since lockdown, we have managed to get some of our actors into the same Zoom as some of the biggest casting directors in the industry, because they were sat almost twiddling their thumbs going, what do we do? So they made a very clear decision to reach out at that point to agents that might be slightly underrepresented or not used as often. And we were definitely part of some of those Zooms. And we've had some cracking results because of that. So yeah, I think it might not be a strange occurrence to get used to, that I think Zoom is probably going to be very much part of the casting process moving forward. I think face to face is always better, but not always necessarily available. And it costs a bloody fortune. We're getting information almost daily about us submitting actors for work as well, because we need to make sure that we're not sending you into the lion's den, as it were. So we're having to check contracts now more than we ever have, because I want to know, are my clients going to be safe? I learned a very valuable thing coming back to Teesside, and that's stay in your own lane. It's okay to, if you're overtaking slightly or you want someone to overtake you slightly, that's fine, but just make sure that you stay on your lane, to make sure that there's no crossover of what is, we've all been there on the motorway going, what is this idiot doing? Pick a lane, pick a lane. It's the same with the industry. Just make sure that you're as transparent as you possibly can be. What do you want from us, the creatives, and what are we getting in return? Even if it's nothing, just be really open and very honest with that.